สวัสดีค่ะนุ้ยนะคะมาอัปเดตเกี่ยวกับเรื่องอาหารการกินนะคะส่วนใหญ่แล้วทางฝ่ายมืดเนี่ยเขาจะตั้งโปรแกรมเสร็จแล้วเขาก็บอกนะคะเขาบอกเป็นรหัสในละครเรื่องThe Simpsons เนาะนี่ก็อีกอันหนึ่งนะคะมีฉากเกี่ยวกับเรื่องกินผักนะคะบอกว่าถ้าคุณอยากกินผักไหมในลูกชายเขานะคะ เดี๋ยวอันนู้นก็จะพามาดูอีกอันหนึ่งนะคะเดี๋ยวกลับมาดูคลิปนี้จะมีซับไตเติลนะคะนี่คือฟู้ดพีระมิดที่อันนุ้ยสร้างขึ้นมาแบบง่ายๆนะคะคือแบบว่าตอนนี้กำลังดูเกี่ยวกับอาหารเรื่องอาหารนะคะเขาตั้งโปรแกรมเรายังไงอาหารที่เราควรจะกินก็คือเนื้อวัวเนื้อแพะนะคะเนื้อไก่เนื้อหมูลองลงมาก็คือเนื้อไก่เนื้อหมูนะคะแล้วก็พวกอาหารปลากุ้งหอยปูปลานะคะแล้วก็ผักเนี่ยมีอยู่ข้างบนนิดหนึ่งตรงนี้นะคะผักผลไม้คืออันนี้จะใส่เฉพาะผลไม้นะคะก็คือเป็นพืชนะคะคือจะไม่ใส่เยอะเพราะว่าปกติแล้วคนสมัยก่อนเนี่ยเขาไม่กินผักผลไม้นะคะความอุดมสมบูรณ์มาจากเนื้อคือผลไม้เนี่ยกินน้อยมากอาจจะเป็นช่วงที่เขารอการล่าสัตว์ยังไม่ได้สัตว์อะไรเงี้ยอาจจะกินผลไม้สุกเพราะว่าผลไม้สุกเขาไม่ต้องทำอาหารไงคะกินได้เลยนี่นะคะอันนี้ก็มีคำแปลจากคนที่เขาบอกเล่ามานะคะใน YouTube คอมเมนต์มาเนี่ยอันนี้ก็เอามาให้ดูนะคะเพราะว่าคนส่วนใหญ่แล้วคนอเมริกันเนี่ยถูกตั้งโปรแกรมให้กินอาหารแบบของหวานแป้งอะไรเงี้ยผักเยอะๆอะไรเงี้ยเนาะเขาก็น้ำหนักขึ้นนะคะน้ำหนักขึ้นเนี่ย200 กิโลเลยทีเดียวมาเป็นเบาหวานมาแล้ว20 ปีนะคะใช้อินซูลินทุกวันคือตอนเนี้ยมันเป็นแบบนี้นะคะ75%ของคนอเมริกันเนี่ยอ้วนนะคะแล้วทีนี้เขาก็เป็นโรคต่างๆเป็นอะไรเยอะแยะมากมายไปหาหมออย่างสามีอันนุ้ยเนี่ยเมื่อก่อนไปหาหมอเดือนละครั้งนะคะอันนุ้ยก็เหมือนกันค่ะอ่าเขามีโรคประจำตัวโรคหัวใจโรคไตระบบการเดินอาหารต่อมไรท่ออะไรต่างๆคือไปหาผู้เชี่ยวชาญเยอะแยะมากมายแถมมีโภชนาการด้วยนะคะก็แนะนำให้เขากินแต่คาร์โบไฮเดรตกินแต่แป้งกินแต่ข้าวสาลีอะไรงั้นนะคะซึ่งมันทำให้คนข้างในเนี่ยมีการอักเสบมีบวมนะคะทีนี้โทษทีนะคะเขาก็เลยหันมาแต่เขาศึกษาเองนะคะแล้วทีนี้เขามากินเนื้ออย่างเดียวนะคะตอนแรกเขากินคีโตก่อนคีโตที่คนส่วนใหญ่ที่เขาจะลดความอ้วนเนี่ยกินคีโตก็คือการได้กินไขมันเยอะกินแป้งให้น้อยลงนะคะพอเขาลดน้ำหนักได้เสร็จแล้วเขาก็มากินเนื้ออย่างเดียวกินเนื้อกับไขมันนะคะเพราะว่าไขมันสำคัญมากแล้วเขาก็ลดได้ตอนนี้เหลือ75กิโลนะคะเบาหวานก็ไม่เป็นแล้วโรคต่างๆก็ดีขึ้นนะคะตาที่ว่าเขาเกือบตาจะบอดนะคะเขาก็ดีขึ้นนะคะอันนี้ตอนนี้เขากินอาหารวันละครั้งเดียวเองนะคะอันนุ้ยก็ย่อให้ฟังนะคะเพราะว่าคนน่ะถูกตั้งโปรแกรมนะคะให้กินแป้งเยอะขึ้นกินน้ำตาลเยอะขึ้นแทนที่จะกินไขมันนะคะเมื่อก่อนปี2000ช่วง2,500ประมาณ520ประมาณนั้นนะคะก่อนหน้านั้นเขากินไม่เคยกินน้ำมันขวดนะคะแล้วก็ไม่ถูกตั้งโปรแกรมให้กินไขมันน้อยลงคนก็เลยมีสุขภาพดีค่ะถึงแม้ว่าจะกินผักซึ่งผักไม่มีสารอาหารคือแบบซึมซับได้น้อยมากว่างั้นเถอะร่างกายเรานะคะเขาคือประชาชนทั่วโลกนะคะถูกตั้งโปรแกรมให้กินไขมันน้อยลงคนก็เลยร่างกายทรุดโทรมนะคะในช่วงเขาเรียกอะไรประมาณ50 ปีเนี่ยพ เพราะว่าตั้งแต่ช่วงนุ้ยเกิดมานี่แหละเขาตั้งโปรแกรมนะคะตั้งแต่ช่วงจอห์น F. เคนเนดีถูกสังหารไปแล้วเนี่ยเขาก็มีโปรแกรมที่แรงขึ้นนะคะอันนี้ก็คือโปรแกรมช่วงสุดท้ายเนาะทีนี้เขาเนี่ยเขาตั้งโปรแกรมเขาก็จะบอกในละครซิมสันนะคะอันนี้นุ้ยจะเปิดซับไตเติลนะคะ
What did you say? I said I don't want any damn thing.
อันนี้เขาก็บอกว่าเขาไม่ต้องการนะคะคือเด็กเนี่ยเขาจะรู้มากกว่าผู้ใหญ่นะคะไม่อยากกินผักซึ่งผักมีสารพิษนะคะ
Vegetables.
All right, that's it, young man. No Bible stories for you tonight.
You're going down, peas. It's crunch time. Get sick.
นี่ก็คือการตั้งโปรแกรมนะคะผักนี่
Veggies.
Eat your veggies. Eat your starches.
นี่ก็คือกินผักแล้วก็กินแป้งนี่ก็คือเขาตั้งโปรแกรมให้เรานะคะคือทุกอย่างที่เขาต้องการที่จะตั้งโปรแกรมให้เราเนี่ยเขาจะบอกกันในทีวีค่ะ
All vegetable.
I did. They're good and you're going to have some.
You've been told that vegetables are the best things to eat. What if this isn't true?
What if plants don't like to be eaten?
I was wrong about eating vegetables.
Dozens of people have ended up in the hospital with possible cases of E. coli. The CDC announced another.
นี่นะคะคนที่กินผักเนี่ยจะมีอีโคไลก็คือมีเชื้อโรคนั่นเองนะคะแต่คนกินเนื้อจะไม่มีข่าวว่าติดคือเขาจะเขาจะสร้างปัญหาเสร็จแล้วเขาก็จะปล่อยข่าวนะคะให้คนกลัวนี่ก็คือโฆษณาให้คนกินผักเสร็จแล้วเขาก็จะปล่อยข่าวให้คนกลัวนะคะ
Another E. coli outbreak is impacting romaine lettuce.
โทษนะคะแป๊บนึงนี่นะคะก็มีในผักทั่วไปอะไรเงี้ยเนาะโรเมนก็คือผักกาด
People reported getting sick, being hospitalized for liver dysfunction, and even having their gallbladders removed in some cases.
98 people.
อันนี้นะคะถุงน้ำดีเนี่ยการที่เรามีหินในถุงน้ำดีเพราะว่าเราไม่กินไขมันนะคะไขมันจะมีถุงน้ำดีจะผลิตน้ำย่อยไขมันมารอไขมันตลอดเวลาถ้าเราไม่ได้กินไขมันเนี่ยน้ำย่อยก็จะตกตะกอนกลายเป็นเป็นหินเป็นนิ่วนะคะเป็นนิ่วเขาบอกว่า 98% ของคนเนี่ยกลายเป็นนิ่วนะคะคือแบบมีอาการนิ่วแล้วก็ต้องผ่าตัดอะไรเงี้ยแล้วพอไปผ่าตัดเสร็จแล้วก็ไม่สามารถจะกินอาหารอะไรต่างๆได้คือย่อยอาหารได้ไม่เต็มที่อย่างนั้นเลยเพราะว่าถุงน้ำดีถูกตัดออกนะคะอันนี้คือคนส่วนใหญ่ที่ไปผ่าตัดก็คือทำเงินให้พวกฝ่ายมืดเยอะมากนะคะ
People from 22 different states making this the biggest multi-state E. coli outbreak in at least 12 years.
The affected region is Yuma, Arizona.
Cut fruit, cut cantaloupe, strawberries, caramel apples, tomato.
นี่คือการตั้งโปรแกรมนะคะคือเหมือนกับว่าทำให้คนกลัวเสร็จแล้วก็โฆษณาใหญ่เลยให้กินผักเนี่ยนะ
Onions, all these products are likely contaminated.
I ate a salad.
เขาเรียกว่า social engineer นะคะก็คือแบบตั้งโปรแกรมให้เราทำตามมันเวิร์คค่ะแต่ตอนนี้เขาเรียกว่าveil ก็คือม่านตาของเราเนี่ยเปิดนะคะเราก็เลยได้รู้ข้อมูลนี้นะคะ
And now I have long-term health effects from it.
You know, we're in a global food system where we're importing and exporting food all over the place. So problems that occur here can certainly be exported elsewhere. Bacteria don't care about import and export restrictions.
Consumers don't cook lettuce, so there's no way to control that risk.
โทษนะคะอันนี้ก็คือเขาเหมือนกับว่าเขาตั้งโปรแกรมให้เรากินผักสดนะคะแล้วทีนี้ไม่ได้ต้มไม่ได้อะไรครับมันก็เลยจะทำให้คนไม่สบายนะคะโทษทีครับคือ
Defense mechanisms to deter animals from eating.
Eat your green vegetables.
And if you didn't,
Well, we all know what happens to naughty kids that don't eat their vegetables.
Angelica, if you don't eat some broccoli, then you're not going to get seconds on dessert.
But that's not fair!
But what if we told you that the whole eat your vegetables thing was a flat-out lie? What if
มันเริ่มเป็นเรื่องโกหกค่ะ
vegetables are not actually all that healthy? What if plants have complex defense mechanisms to deter animals from eating them? And that's why vegetables are actually somewhat toxic for us to consume?
If these plants are so toxic, how can animals eat them? Well, animals are adapted to eating these plants. These are herbivorous animals. Possums ingest doses of up to 10 grams of 1,8 cyniol per day, doses which would be quite poisonous for human beings.
And what if all the micronutrients vegetables do have are completely useless because our bodies can't absorb nearly any of it? What if eating too much celery has been linked to miscarriages and infertility? What if eating too much kale has been linked to thyroid disease and kidney stones? And yet today, all these vegetables have this magical aura around them. Today, when we think of a healthy diet, our brains automatically conjure up images of luscious, bland, leafy greens, when in reality, that is the exact opposite of what we should be eating. There's a reason why you don't feel full eating vegetables. There's a reason why vegetables usually taste bitter, because vegetables are not meant to be eaten.
It's so hard to get kids to eat their vegetables.
For millennia, people intuitively knew this. Vegetables didn't make up the majority of their diets. They ate meat that they hunted and fruit that they scavenged. Vegetables were used sparingly. And yet somehow, we've all been duped into thinking that salads, green smoothies, green juices, green powders are healthy.
There is some validity to considering the wild notion that vegetables, the leaves, stems, roots, and seeds of plants contain defense chemicals, and they may not be helping us with our issues.
Welcome to Evil Food Supply, and this is that story. To research these videos, we usually come across online content that is geo-restricted, or we'll have to visit websites that we would rather not be traced back to us, which is why we use a VPN. For us, we also always use a VPN when we're connected to public Wi-Fi, like at airports, hotels, and coffee shops to protect us from hackers. And the VPN we recommend is Surfshark, today's sponsor. What's great about Surfshark is that you get a top-rated VPN for a tiny fraction of the cost of other VPN services, while being connected to an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. And it even comes with Surfshark Antivirus, which shields your device from malware by scanning files before you download or open them so nothing malicious gets in, while also protecting your webcam from unauthorized access. Back in the early 1800s, vegetables were pretty rare. People were spending all day working on the farm, and to spend an entire day on your feet, you would need a lot of calories. A Mandarin chicken salad from Wendy's just wouldn't have cut it. And sure, these farmers would slip a vegetable or two into their soup for some extra flavor, or use herbs and leaves in a medicinal way to cure diseases. But no one was horking down piles of broccoli or painful swallowing forkfuls of kale. Because why would they? They needed high-calorie foods to have enough energy to plow their land. Their lives depended on it. And the most dense food out there in terms of both calories and nutrients was, and always will be, meat. So that's what farmers ate. And these farmers stuck to a high-calorie, meat-based diet for a while. But then, the industrial age happened. All of a sudden, people started leaving the farm life behind for a shot at the American dream in the big city. Big cities where there's movie theaters, restaurants, and grocery stores. People turned away from plowing the fields to work cushy office jobs. And their wives had all the time in the world to cook all sorts of different meals at home. People didn't want to eat the same food as low-class farmers now, did they? That was behind them. Plus, meat is expensive. So now the American population started experimenting with new cuisines, new recipes, new ingredients like vegetables. In every other culture around the world, raw vegetables were either consumed very sparingly for medicinal purposes or for a bit of flavor. But come on! This is the golden age of America. Let's import every vegetable we can. And let's eat vegetables in every way possible. We have the time, we have the money, so why not? So Americans started to get creative with raw vegetables. There was the aspic salad of the 60s, the spinach souffle of the 70s, the broccoli cheddar salad of the 80s. And slowly but surely, vegetables started taking over the American palate. And because vegetables are pretty much calorie-free, it made the perfect target for the weight loss industry. Kale. It's crunchy. It's crisp. It kinda tastes like grass clippings. But according to the biggest health experts in America, kale is the superfood.
MVP of greens, it is King Kale.
Because it's one of the most nutritious vegetables.
I knew kale before it was kale.
It's the holy grail of nutrition. But here's what you may not realize. Only 10 years ago, kale was just a sad, wilted mess underneath the Pizza Hut salad bar. So how did this lowly vegetable undergo this incredible transformation? Well, it was all thanks to one woman, Miss Oberon Sinclair. Oberon is the owner of the New York City PR firm, My Young Auntie. And Miss Oberon had one simple dream, to get America to eat more kale. Why? Because I've been trying to convert people for years to eat in a healthy way. I've always loved kale. It is an amazing vegetable. And so she used her skills to make kale the hottest thing since avocado toast. She got Beyonce to wear a kale sweatshirt. She convinced New York restaurants to put kale on their menus. She even created a fake Facebook page for the American Kale Association, which isn't even a real association. She literally made it up out of the air. And yet, somehow, it worked.
Kale. Kale.
Kale.
Kale.
Kale. Kale.
Today, you can find kale everywhere. It's being massaged into salad. It's being blended into smoothies. McDonald's even put out a kale breakfast bowl. And that would be fine if kale was actually healthy for you. But the truth is, kale is shockingly bad for you. See, back in the day, farmers tried to feed kale to their sheep, and the results were nothing short of horrifying. Because of the sheep's high kale diet, they ended up giving birth to babies with massive goiters. A goiter is when a sheep has a giant bulge on its throat, like this. But on top of that, a lot of the baby lambs developed major brain abnormalities. Some were even stillborn. And cows that were fed kale in Tasmania, they produced milk that ended up causing thyroid disease in the children who drank it. If you don't know, your thyroid gland is a small, butterfly-shaped gland located below your Adam's apple. Your thyroid gland is responsible for making two main hormones that affect every cell in the body, and they play a key role in how fast your body uses fats and carbohydrates. In other words, your thyroid plays a key role in your metabolism. So you definitely don't want to hurt your thyroid or get a thyroid disease. Thyroid disease can mean your thyroid doesn't produce enough of the thyroid hormones your body needs, or it can produce too much. Or you can also develop a goiter like those sheep. That is what's happening when you eat kale. And yet, health-conscious Americans will just keep gobbling it down like there's no tomorrow. And sure, you're not going to get thyroid disease after 1 or 2 kale smoothies, but it is definitely a net negative for your body. And here's the thing, the exact same thing happened with celery. Before, celery was consumed here and there, but it wouldn't be until 5 years ago that America would get really hooked on it. And it was all thanks to this guy, Anthony William, a famous psychic.
Many people, shortly after drinking 16 ounces of celery juice on an empty stomach every single day, experience less digestive problems. They get rid of acid reflux. They feel more energy. They feel more clear. Their brain fog dissipates. They feel like they're moving forward, finally out of their illness, finally out of their condition.
But why celery juice? Well, because a voice in his head told him so.
For anybody who doesn't know about me or where I get my information from, comes from a source above, a source that's free from the agenda that men here have on the planet.
The idea that celery juice is healthy did not come from empirical data, but a random voice in his head. And yet, once again, the public ate it up.
So many celebrities have joined this craze.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone, I heard, is now a big fan of the celery juice.
Yeah, he's juicing celery juice, absolutely. He's juicing celery, yeah.
If that works for him, I mean, come on, it's going to work for everyone. Jenna Dewan, I've been seeing, she's been posting about you as well as the celery juice. Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, she's doing it too. She's doing the celery juice every single morning, 16 ounces on an empty stomach.
Wow.
Yeah. Never mind that celery was traditionally considered a medicinal food that's only supposed to be eaten in small amounts. But just like kale, celery is actually not good for you at all. Drinking high amounts of celery like this has been linked to asthma, extreme sun sensitivity, male infertility, miscarriages, and fetal abnormalities. But it's not just kale or celery that's bad for you, it's most vegetables. But why? Why are vegetables so dangerous for us? It seems very counterintuitive, since we've been conditioned our whole lives to believe that green equals healthy. But the simple reality is, plants do not want you to eat them.
The intention of plants is very clear here. They don't want us to eat the leaves, the stems, the roots, or the seeds. They don't want us to crunch and chew up the seeds because that would subvert the plant's efforts to move those seeds to the next generation.
From a survival perspective, plants don't have much going for them. They're just kind of there, waving in the wind, just waiting to be eaten. So in order to survive, plants have evolved complex defense mechanisms to deter would-be vegetarians. For example, when a caterpillar chews on certain types of leaves, the leaves will actually secrete a toxin, driving the caterpillar away. When we chew a spinach or kale leaf, those same toxins get released. And these toxins are called natural pesticides. You've heard of pesticides. They're the dangerous chemical cocktails that are sprayed on big agriculture to prevent insects from eating the crops. But what you may not know is that plants actually produce natural pesticides. And pretty much every green vegetable contains them. These natural pesticides can cause digestive disorders, headaches, asthma, and a whole list of autoimmune diseases, all in an effort to convince you never to eat this plant again. And yet, thanks to all this conditioning to eat your vegetables,
Eat your vegetables.
Eat your vegetables. Eat your vegetables.
Eat your green vegetables.
one scientist said that humans eat 10,000 times more natural pesticides than they do synthetic.
But you can see here from this paper, table 1 is 49 natural pesticides and metabolites found in cabbage. They mention below this chart in the explanation, allyl isothiocyanates induced papillomas of the bladder in male rats. A neoplasm that is unusually rare in control rats was classified by the National Toxicology Program as carcinogenic. Allyl isothiocyanate occurs in cabbage.
But you may be wondering, well, okay, evil food supply, but why are cows able to eat grass then? Well, animals, like cows, sheep, and horses, are 100% herbivores. And it's all thanks to their super long digestive tracts that are able to process fiber into short-chain fatty acids. Humans do not have this long digestive tract. Plant fiber goes right through us and is actually pretty bad for our digestion.
Others of us have to avoid them because they immediately start to cause inflammation in the gut, which can manifest as constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas.
But it's not just these natural pesticides that are ruining our bodies. Green vegetables like kale, broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage all contain something called goitrogens. Goitrogens are compounds that interfere with your thyroid gland. They block your thyroid from absorbing iodine, which it needs to build hormones, which means your metabolism is gonna be wrecked. Goitrogens act the same way in the body as cyanide. It's pure poison. Remember those lambs? It was the goitrogens in the kale that made their thyroids so big. So many people today are chugging kale smoothies every single morning, assuming it's giving them energy, when really, it's blocking their hormone production, making them more tired and weak.
Typically, people will struggle with cold intolerance, or they say that I'm just having trouble losing weight and I'm doing all the same things and that I used to be doing, and I'm gaining weight, or I feel really sluggish. So they might have brain fog, they might have fatigue, they might have muscle wasting and hair loss. And the symptoms seem to be all over the place, right? And you're like, well, do I go to the hair doctor? Do I go to this kind of doctor? And a lot of these symptoms can be traced back to the thyroid gland.
And as if pesticides and goitrogens aren't enough, green vegetables are known to be sponges for dangerous bacteria.
And the CDC with a warning this afternoon about an E. coli outbreak linked to baby spinach.
You can get really sick, and if you're vulnerable, very young, very old, autoimmune problems, you can die from that.
Washing does not remove this bacteria because what it can do is get inside the cells, so washing doesn't do anything at all.
Number one is just don't eat it. Just when in doubt, throw it out.
Which explains a lot. Like, have you ever wondered why it's always the leafy greens that are contaminated with E. coli? It's because E. coli and other types of dangerous bacteria, like listeria, are found in soil. And what grows in soil? Green vegetables. And unlike fruits, which are usually grown on trees, or potatoes and onions that are grown in the ground and are usually peeled, green vegetables are just eaten as is. So if there's E. coli infested manure in that soil, and the food processor doesn't clean their vegetables well, those same vegetables could make their way to your plate.
Romaine lettuce contaminated with E. coli caused 4 new deaths, one of them in upstate New York, according to a new alert from the Centers for Disease Control. The bacteria, which is normally treatable, causes severe fever and diarrhea. The breakout started last month after E. coli was found on lettuce from Yuma, Arizona. So far, almost 200 people from 35 states have reported feeling ill.
Look on any container of greens powder and you'll see a huge list of vitamins and minerals. Calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin B6, biotin. You stir up a glass of this green stuff thinking that all of these nutrients are going to be absorbing into you, turning you into the fitness influencer of your dreams. But that is simply an illusion. Barely any of those nutrients are going to get absorbed. According to one study, only 1 to 10% of the iron in spinach gets absorbed by humans. So when vegans argue that 1 cup of spinach is the equivalent of a piece of steak, it's just not. You're only getting a tiny fraction of the nutrients listed on the label.
One of our regulars at Antler was talking to me about his experience. He used to have a organic vegetable farm, and he's a 6'7", big, huge, tall Dutch white guy. And he goes to me, he says, I was vegan for a long time. I had this organic vegetable farm, and I thought that I was doing my body a service. I thought I was doing something great for my body. And he got really sick, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, listen, man, you have to take supplements, the things you're not getting from eating meat, or you have to go back to eating meat.
But why? Why can't you absorb all that goodness that is in spinach? It's because of one thing, something called anti-nutrients. Anti-nutrients are compounds that are found in vegetables like spinach, kale, broccoli, collards, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and more. And there's also anti-nutrients in grains like rice and legumes like beans, lentils, chickpeas, soybeans, and peanuts. The reason why they're called anti-nutrients is because they bind to the nutrients that you actually want to absorb and basically make them unusable by the human body. A few of the well-studied anti-nutrients include lectins, phytic acid, and tannins. Now, there are ways to reduce the amount of anti-nutrients in these foods, like boiling them, fermenting them, or soaking them. But it's not perfect, and it usually doesn't remove all of it. For example, if you boil your vegetables, you also have to make sure you dump out the water to get rid of the anti-nutrients, or else it will just be in the water. So if you ever wondered why vegans tend to look and feel malnourished, this is probably one of the reasons. Almost none of these nutrients are getting absorbed. So if vegetables are completely off the table, what do we put on our plate instead? Well, first off, if you're using a little bit of basil or mint here and there for the flavor and aroma, it's probably not the end of the world. But to base your entire diet off of mainly vegetables is a bad idea, no matter what the vegans want you to think. The documentary on veganism coming soon, so make sure you subscribe. Overall, the most nutritious foods you can eat from the plant kingdom are root vegetables and fruit. Plants don't want you to eat it, but they do actually want you to eat their fruit. Why? Because when animals eat a plant's fruit, that animal is helping that plant spread its seed and propagate. There's a reason why fruit is sweet and delicious while you have to douse celery in ranch in order to be able to scarf it down.
When a plant is making a fruit, it may put defense chemicals in the fruit when it's green, when it's unripe, but as the fruit ripens, they get lower and lower and lower and lower, and a lot of these defense chemicals are at much higher levels, 5 to 10x, in the stems and the leaves. So fruit is clearly the least defended part of a plant.
And roots like potatoes, carrots, and beets are so dense in nutrients, you could literally grow leaves out of them. Now, you may be thinking, but what about fiber? I need all that fiber for my daily kale smoothie. Well, fiber from vegetables is actually not that important. Soluble fiber, which is the watery, gel-like fiber in vegetables and roots, is the only type of fiber we need to feed good bacteria. Insoluble fiber, which is the stuff in vegetables, is like eating pure grass. It just goes in one hole and right out the other.
We're not adapted to this, guys. As humans, we have been seeking out animal foods preferentially and the least toxic plant foods for our entire evolution, which is why making those the center of your diet sends a signal to your body that you are the apex predator, that you are a good hunter. If you want to send a signal to your body that you're a crappy hunter and you want to eat crappy survival foods like seeds, nuts, grains, legumes, plant leaves, and stems, you can do that, but you're not going to thrive in the highest way, I believe, for most people.
What you gotta keep in mind is that not all meat is equal. In fact, most of the meat you find at your local grocery store is pretty sketchy. You know how you see those American-raised beef or produced in the USA stickers in the grocery store? Well, apparently, those stickers are a complete lie. There used to be a very strict law in place that required meat packers to label exactly where their beef was raised. But that law was squashed in 2015 by the USDA because it hampered competition with livestock from other countries. Which means you could be buying beef that's labeled produced in the USA, when in reality, the meat is from Mexico or Brazil that could have much lower standards. And we expose it all, along with how to find quality meat in our latest newsletter that you get right now by scrolling down and clicking on the second link in the description. It takes less than 15 seconds. The Evil Food Insiders newsletter is where we get to alert you on breaking news when it comes to our food supply straight into your inbox, along with important knowledge like this that might not warrant a full documentary. And the feedback we're constantly getting about the newsletter has been amazing. And you can be a part of it by clicking the square on the screen or by clicking the link below and simply typing in your email.